Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today we're going to be looking at relics in Orthodox Christianity.
Right.
Now, when you hear that word relics, you might be thinking of, something kind of dusty in a museum.
Right.
But for Orthodox Christians, it's so much more than that, and we're going to find out why.
Definitely.
We're drawing from a really interesting article today called Relics in Orthodox Christianity, More Than Just Ancient Artifacts, and it's from Orthodox Christian Tools/store/blog.
Okay.
And this deep dive is going to be a fascinating one, so let's jump right in.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so, we live in a world that's so digital, so abstract.
Right.
It's almost like these relics offer something real, something tangible for Orthodox Christians.
In a world that's become so digital, it's interesting how relics offer Orthodox Christians this tangible, almost visceral connection to the divine.
Yeah.
Like they ground their faith in something real, something that stood the test of time.
It's a connection to history, but it's more than that.
Yeah.
It's a living connection.
Right.
And the article mentions this idea that relics are infused with the grace and the holiness of the saints. So what does that mean, practically speaking, for Orthodox Christians?
Well, think of it this way. Orthodox Christians believe that the holiness of a saint, their closeness to God, isn't just something abstract.
Okay.
It's a real tangible energy that can permeate objects they touched or were connected to in life.
Interesting.
Relics are seen as conduits for that energy, almost like a bridge between heaven and earth.
So it's not like we're talking about praying to a statue here. We're
Yeah.
talking about a deeper energy.
Exactly. It's about connecting to the saint, to their holiness, and ultimately through them to God.
Okay.
And this idea is really woven into the very fabric of Orthodox Christianity through this concept called the communion of saints.
The communion of saints. Now, I've heard that term, but honestly, I'm a little fuzzy on what it actually means.
It's a beautiful concept, really.
Okay.
It's the belief that all Christians, whether they're living here on earth or have passed on, are united in this kind of mystical body, a spiritual community. And relics become these physical links to that community, connecting believers across time and space.
Okay.
It's one of the ways Orthodox Christianity really emphasizes that interconnectedness, that sense of continuity.
That makes a lot more sense. So it's not just about venerating an object.
Right.
It's about joining this larger spiritual community, this communion of saints.
Exactly.
Now, the article also mentions miracles associated with relics.
Yes.
What are some of the most remarkable miracles attributed to them? Are there any that particularly stand out in Orthodox tradition?
Oh, absolutely. Throughout history, there have been countless stories of miracles attributed to relics.
Wow.
We're talking physical healings, emotional restorations, even profound spiritual awakenings. And these aren't just ancient tales. Believers report experiencing these miracles even today.
So these are modern day miracles.
Yes, it's part of what keeps the faith so vibrant and alive.
It's amazing to think about a physical object having such a profound impact on someone's life. But I'm curious, are there specific types of miracles associated with specific relics? Or is it more of a general belief in their power to intercede with God?
It's a bit of both.
Okay.
Some relics have become known for specific miracles.
Okay.
For example, relics of Saint Pantaleimon, a physician saint, are often associated with healing. So people might seek out those particular relics if they or a loved one are struggling with an illness.
So like seeking out a specialist, but in the spiritual realm.
Exactly.
Interesting.
But there's also this underlying belief that all relics have the potential to work miracles, regardless of whether they're associated with a specific type.
Okay.
It speaks to the faith people place in them and to the power of God working through these objects.
So it's not just about the object itself, but about the faith it inspires and the connection to the divine it represents.
Right.
The article also mentioned relics being incorporated into personal spiritual practice. How do they actually fit into that?
Well, imagine kneeling before a relic of a saint you deeply admire. It's not just a historical object. It's a tangible reminder of their virtues, their courage, their compassion, their unwavering faith. And that can be incredibly powerful for personal reflection and prayer.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's like having a direct link to someone who's already walked the path. You're on someone who embodies the qualities you aspire to.
Exactly. It's like having a spiritual mentor, a guide right there in front of you.
Wow.
And that presence can be profoundly moving and inspiring.
But it's not just personal, right? I remember the article mentioning that relics are also integrated into the liturgy and the physical spaces of Orthodox churches.
Absolutely. They're not just tucked away in some back room. Relics are actively woven into the fabric of Orthodox worship.
Hmm.
For instance, they're often enshrined within altars,
Okay.
which isn't just symbolic.
Right.
It's believed that the relic's presence actually sanctifies the space, creating a more powerful connection to the divine during services.
So it's like the relics are actively shaping the spiritual environment, making those services more potent?
Think of it this way. When you're in a church with these relics, you're surrounded by this tangible connection to the saints, to this great cloud of witnesses who have gone before.
Yeah.
It can be a very powerful, moving experience.
And that idea of connection, of community, really seems to be central to the whole concept of relics.
It absolutely is.
And speaking of connection, the article also mentions pilgrimages to relic sites.
Yes.
Now, these aren't your typical vacations, are they?
No, they sound a lot more intense than a trip to the beach.
Yeah.
Tell me more about them. What makes them so special?
Well, imagine traveling hundreds, maybe even thousands of miles to venerate a specific relic.
Wow.
It's a journey of faith, an act of devotion, a chance to deepen your connection to your beliefs and to the saints. People undertake these pilgrimages for all sorts of reasons, seeking healing, hoping for miracles, or simply yearning for a deeper spiritual experience. I can see how that would be incredibly powerful, stepping outside your everyday life and into this journey that's so focused on faith and connection. I've even read stories of people having profound spiritual experiences after visiting relic sites, like healings, newfound clarity, even complete life changes.
It really speaks to the power of these objects, to the faith people place in them, and to that deep human need for connection to something greater than ourselves.
That's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
So we've touched on relics as conduits of spiritual energy, their role in personal practice, their presence in church spaces, and even these incredible pilgrimages. It's clear that relics aren't just static objects.
Right.
They're woven into the very fabric of Orthodox Christian life.
You've got that right, and we've only just scratched the surface.
Okay.
There's so much more to uncover about their significance and their impact.
Well, lucky for us, we have more time to dive deeper. What else can you tell us about these intriguing objects?
Well, let's talk about this idea of the communion of saints in more detail. It's central to understanding why relics are so important in Orthodox Christianity,
Okay.
and it's a concept that might surprise you.
I'm all ears. Let's unpack that next.
All right. This concept of the communion of saints.
Hmm.
It isn't just some abstract theological idea. It's a living, breathing reality for Orthodox Christians. They truly believe that the saints are actively present in their lives, offering guidance, support, and intercession before God.
It's amazing to think that this community extends beyond the living, encompasses those who've passed on. But I'm curious, how do relics actually tie into this concept?
Yeah.
It seems like more than just remembering or honoring the saints.
You're right. It goes much deeper than that. Veneration of relics is seen as a direct way to participate in this communion, this unity of all Christians across time and space.
Okay.
It's about connecting with the saints on a spiritual level, joining your prayers with theirs, and asking for their guidance and intercession.
So it's like a spiritual network where
Yeah.
relics act as these access points, allowing for a two-way communication flow.
That's a great way to put it. It's not just about us reaching out to the saints. It's also about them reaching back to us, offering their support and prayers. And this idea of saints actively interceding for us is a big part of Orthodox Christianity, something that sets it apart from some other branches of Christianity.
That's really interesting. It paints a much more dynamic picture of the relationship between the living and the departed.
Yeah.
It's not a one-way street, but I am curious, what does venerating a relic actually look like? What do people do?
Well, imagine approaching a reliquary.
Okay.
These are often ornate containers, sometimes made of precious metals, or adorned with jewels specifically designed to hold and protect the relic. You might make the sign of the cross, say a prayer, maybe even kiss or touch the reliquary as a sign of respect.
It sounds very tactile, very physical. It's interesting to think about how physical actions can play such an important role in connecting with the spiritual realm. And this isn't about worshiping the relic itself, right?
Exactly. That's a common misconception.
Yeah.
The veneration is directed towards the saint, not the object itself. It's a way of honoring their life, their faith, and their closeness to God.
It's like the relic is a bridge, a conduit. It's not the destination itself, but it helps you get there.
I like that analogy. And it's important to remember that this veneration isn't just about asking for things, although people certainly do pray for healing guidance or various needs. It's also about seeking inspiration, seeking a deeper connection to the divine through the example of the saint.
Makes me think about how physical objects can evoke such strong emotions and memories, like holding a cherished family heirloom. It can transport you back in time, connect you to those who came before you, and even inspire you to live up to their example.
That's a great comparison. Relics can function in a similar way for Orthodox Christians, connecting them to this long lineage of faith, to those who've walked the path of holiness before them. And it's not just about the past, it's about carrying that inspiration forward into their own lives.
Now, I know there are different perspectives on relics, even within Christianity. Are there any controversies or criticisms surrounding them?
Oh, absolutely. Relics have been a subject of debate for centuries, both within and outside of the Orthodox Church. One of the biggest issues is authenticity. With so many relics circulating throughout history, it's understandable that people question whether they're all genuine after all. How can you definitively prove a fragment of bone truly belonged to a specific saint?
That's a good point. I imagine there's potential for fraud or misrepresentation, especially with such historically significant objects.
You're right, there have been cases of fake relics being presented as genuine. The Orthodox Church takes this issue very seriously. They've developed procedures for authenticating relics. But it's a complex process relying on historical records, scientific analysis, and even spiritual discernment, ultimately, though it often comes down to faith, trusting the tradition and the authorities who have preserved these objects over the centuries.
So there's a real tension between the tangible and the intangible, the historical and the spiritual. Are there any other criticisms, maybe from those who think relics distract from the worship of God?
That's another valid concern. Some people worry that focusing on relics might lead people to worship the objects themselves or elevate the saints above God.
So it's about maintaining a balance, understanding the role of relics within a larger spiritual context.
Exactly. The Orthodox Church emphasizes that relics are venerated, not worshipped. They're seen as tools, as aids to devotion. But the ultimate focus should always be on God. It's like using a map to find your way to a destination. The map is helpful, but it's not the destination itself.
That's a helpful analogy. So
Yeah.
despite these controversies, for those who do embrace the veneration of relics, what are some of the perceived benefits?
Well, as we've talked about, relics are seen as powerful intercessors. Believers pray to the saints for all sorts of things like healing, guidance, protection, and they believe the presence of a relic strengthens that connection, making their prayers more effective. It's like having a direct line to the saint.
I can see how that belief could be incredibly comforting, especially in times of need.
Absolutely. And beyond intercession, there's the whole realm of miracles attributed to relics. We've already touched on some examples, but the sheer volume and variety of stories is astounding. People report healings, unexpected blessings, spiritual awakenings, experiences that defy rational explanation.
It's fascinating how these beliefs shape people's lives, their hopes, their fears, even their understanding of the world around them. I'm curious, are there specific types of miracles associated with different relics, or is it more of a general belief in their power to intercede with God?
It's a bit of both, actually, as I mentioned earlier. Certain relics have become known for particular types of miracles. Relics of St. Pantaleon are often associated with healing, for example. And people might seek them out specifically for that reason. But there's also this underlying belief that all relics, by virtue of their connection to a saint, have the potential to work miracles.
So it's a combination of the specific and the general, the unique power of a particular relic, and this broader faith in the holiness of all relics.
You've got it. And it's important to remember that these beliefs aren't just abstract ideas. They have a real impact on people's lives. They offer hope, comfort, and a sense of connection to something larger than themselves.
It's amazing to think about how these ancient objects, these remnants of the past, continue to hold such power and meaning for so many people.
It really is. And we haven't even delved into the historical and cultural impact of relics. They've shaped art, architecture, and entire cultural landscapes.
That's a whole other layer to explore. I'm ready to dive into that. So these relics, they've shaped architecture, entire cultures. It's fascinating.
It's true. Their impact goes way beyond just the church walls. Think about the incredible reliquaries that we've talked about.
Right,
I mean, these ornate containers weren't just functional objects. They were often masterpieces of craftsmanship, reflecting different artistic styles and cultures.
It's like the container itself is an act of devotion.
Exactly.
An offering to honor that sacred object inside.
And then you have the role of relics in inspiring some of the most iconic works of Orthodox Christian art. Think about the countless frescoes and icons depicting scenes from the lives of the saints, often directly inspired by relics associated with them.
Right.
These images weren't just decorative. They were meant to bring the stories of the saints and their virtues to life, inspiring believers and connecting them to their faith.
So it's like relics almost help to shape the visual language of faith, creating a tangible link between the spiritual and the artistic.
And it's not just visual art. Relics have also played a role in the development of Orthodox Christian architecture. Many churches and monasteries were built around relics, becoming pilgrimage destinations and centers of devotion. And these structures often became architectural marvels, attracting pilgrims and showcasing the wealth and influence of the church.
It's just amazing to think about how these objects, often small and unassuming in themselves, could inspire such grand and enduring creations.
Yeah.
It really speaks to the power of belief and the ways in which faith can manifest in the physical world.
Absolutely. And the impact goes beyond individual buildings. Think about the pilgrimage routes that developed around relics, crisscrossing continents and shaping cultural landscapes.
Yeah.
These journeys brought people from different regions and backgrounds together, fostering exchange and influencing the development of towns and cities along the way.
Wow, so something so deeply rooted in faith having such a profound impact on history, geography, and culture.
Right.
I mean, it really challenges how we think today, separating the spiritual from the secular. In the case of relics, those boundaries are beautifully blurred.
I couldn't agree more. It's a reminder that faith isn't just a personal belief system. It's a force that can shape societies, inspire creativity, and connect people across time and space. But beyond these grand historical and cultural influences, I think it's important to remember that the true significance of relics lies in their power to connect individual believers with the divine.
So while these broader historical and cultural impacts are fascinating, the heart of the matter really is about that personal connection to faith.
It's exactly. For Orthodox Christians, relics are more than just ancient artifacts or museum pieces. They're living, breathing sources of spiritual power and inspiration.
And that belief, that connection, it continues to thrive in the modern world, right? It's not just a relic of the past, so to speak.
Absolutely. In fact, I think you could argue that in a world that's become increasingly secular, increasingly focused on the material, and the ephemeral relics offer something truly unique and compelling.
Right. They offer a counterpoint to the digital age, grounding in something tangible, something that connects to a history and a faith that extends far beyond our individual lives.
Exactly. In a world where so much emphasis is placed on technology and instant gratification, relics invite us to slow down, to reflect, to connect with something that has stood the test of time. They offer a sense of permanence, of continuity in a world that can often feel chaotic and uncertain.
And while not everyone may personally believe in the power of relics, there's something undeniably captivating about them. The stories they tell, the beliefs they represent.
You're absolutely right, whether you approach them from a perspective of faith history art or simply human curiosity, relics offer a rich and rewarding subject for exploration.
Well, I think it's safe to say that we've done some serious exploring in this deep dive.
Yeah.
We've journeyed from the dusty corners of history to the vibrant heart of Orthodox Christian faith.
We have.
We've encountered stories of miracles, debated authenticity, grappled with the complexities of belief and tradition.
And through it all, I hope we've gained a deeper understanding of this fascinating and often misunderstood aspect of Orthodox Christianity.
I think we have too. It's been a real eye-opener for me, and I hope it has been for our listeners as well.
Now, as always, the real journey begins now that the deep dive is over. What will you take away from this exploration? How will this newfound knowledge shape your own understanding of faith's spirituality and the power of objects to connect us to something greater than ourselves?
Those are some really great questions to think about. And who knows, maybe this deep dive will spark a curiosity to learn more about relics, maybe to seek them out, to experience firsthand the power and the mystery that they hold.
The world is full of wonders, waiting to be discovered. And sometimes the most profound discoveries are found in the most unexpected places.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of relics in Orthodox Christianity. We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration.